Imagine this. You're sitting in your favorite chair, sipping a cup of tea, when suddenly the front door bursts open. Your granddaughter, her face streaked with tears, runs to you, trembling, and says the words that shatter your heart. Daddy hit me and says I'm not wanted. What would you do? How would you feel? This is not just a story. This is a moment that changes lives forever. Today, we're diving into a tale of pain, love, and the unbreakable bond between a grandparent and a child. Stay with me, because this is a story you won't forget. I've noticed only 98% of you who watch haven't subscribed. Come on, guys, show some love and support. Thanks a bunch to those who have already subscribed. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the quiet neighborhood. Birds chirped lazily in the trees, and the faint hum of distant traffic filled the air. It was one of those evenings that felt peaceful, almost perfect. I was in my living room, flipping through an old photo album, reminiscing about the days when my children were young. Life had a way of moving too fast, and sometimes it felt like those moments were slipping through my fingers like sand. The photo album was filled with memories, birthdays, holidays, and lazy Sunday afternoons spent in the backyard. There was a picture of my son, Michael, when he was just a little boy, grinning from ear to ear as he held up a fish he'd caught during a family camping trip. He'd been so proud of that fish, even though it was barely bigger than his hand. Back then, he was full of laughter and curiosity, always eager to explore the world around him. I sighed, closing the album and setting it aside. Those days were long gone. Michael was a grown man now, with a family of his own. But lately, something had changed. He'd become distant, irritable, and quick to anger. I'd noticed it during our weekly phone calls, in the way his voice would tighten when he talked about work or finances. I'd tried to brush it off, telling myself it was just stress, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. And then, the peace was shattered. The sound of the front door slamming open startled me. I turned, and there she was, my granddaughter, Emily. Her tiny frame was shaking, her cheeks flushed and wet with tears. Her hair was disheveled, and her eyes, those big, innocent eyes, were filled with a pain no child should ever know. "Grandma," she choked out, her voice trembling, "Daddy hit me, and he said I'm not wanted." My heart stopped. For a moment, I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, heavy and suffocating. Emily stood there, her little hands clutching the hem of her dress, waiting for me to do something, to say something. And then, as if a switch had been flipped, I rushed to her, pulling her into my arms. "Oh, my sweet girl," I whispered, holding her tightly. "You are wanted. You are loved. Never, ever doubt that." But even as I said those words, my mind was racing. How could this happen? My son, Emily's father, had always been a good man, hard-working, kind, and devoted to his family. But lately, something had changed. He'd become distant, irritable, and quick to anger. I'd noticed it, of course, but I never imagined it would come to this. Emily buried her face in my shoulder, her sobs shaking her entire body. I stroked her hair, trying to soothe her, but inside I was furious. How could he do this to his own child? How could he make her feel like she wasn't wanted? "Tell me everything, sweetheart," I said gently, pulling back to look at her. "What happened?" She sniffled, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. I was playing with my toys and Daddy was on the phone. He sounded really mad. I tried to be quiet, but I dropped my doll and it made a noise. He yelled at me, "Grandma." He said I was always in the way, that he didn't want me anymore. And then, he hit me. Her voice broke on the last word and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. My stomach churned. I felt sick. This wasn't just a moment of frustration. This was something deeper, something darker. And I knew I couldn't let it go. "Emily," I said, taking her hands in mine, "you are the most precious thing in this world to me. No one, not your father, not anyone, can ever take that away from you. Do you understand?" She nodded, but her eyes were still filled with fear. Fear of her own father. It broke my heart. That night, I tucked Emily into bed, singing her favorite lullaby until she finally drifted off to sleep. But I couldn't rest. I sat in the living room, staring at the clock, waiting for my son to come home. When he finally walked through the door hours later, he looked exhausted. His shoulders were slumped and his eyes were bloodshot. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firm. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mom, I'm tired. Can this wait?" "No," I said sharply. "It can't." He looked at me, surprised by the tone of my voice. I rarely raised my voice, but this was different. This was about Emily. "What's going on with you?" I demanded. "How could you hurt your own child? How could you make her feel like she's not wanted?" For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just stood there staring at the floor. And then, to my shock, he broke down. "I don't know what's wrong with me," he said, his voice cracking. "I'm so stressed, Mom. Work is overwhelming. The bills are piling up, and I feel like I'm failing at everything. I didn't mean to hurt her. I lost control." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I could see the pain in his eyes, the guilt, but that didn't excuse what he'd done. "You need help," I said firmly. "You can't take your frustrations out on Emily. She's just a child. She doesn't deserve this." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know. I'll get help, Mom. I promise." And he did. Over the next few months, my son started therapy. He worked on managing his stress and anger, and slowly but surely, he began to change. He apologized to Emily, and though it took time, she forgave him. But the scars, both physical and emotional, remained. This story isn't just about a father who made a terrible mistake. It's about the resilience of a child, the love of a grandparent, and the power of forgiveness. It's a reminder that even in our darkest moments, there is hope. Emily is thriving now. She's happy, confident, and knows just how much she is loved. And my son? He's become the father he always wanted to be. But this journey wasn't easy. It was filled with pain, tears, and difficult conversations. And it's a journey that continues every single day. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's this. Never underestimate the impact of your words and actions. A child's heart is fragile, and it's our job to protect it. If you've ever faced a situation like this, or if this story has touched you in any way, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in the power of love and second chances, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Together, we can spread stories that inspire, heal, and remind us of what truly matters. Thank you for listening. And remember, no matter what you're going through, you are wanted, you are loved, and you are never alone.